Hello again. This is part 2 of our suspension inspection and rebuild. Since we were down in Galveston, I did the inspection. I decided to replace the bronze bushings because, like I said in part 1 video, it's been 3 years and about 17,000 miles since I last changed the bronze bushings. So I decided to go ahead and do it. And I did it myself the first time 3 years ago, and I'm doing it myself again this time. But I'm going to show you some of the parts, and I've got the right side done a couple days ago. Right now it's cold and rainy, so I've put off doing the left side till I get a better day. But in the right side rebuild, I did find one bushing that was deteriorated to the point where it was gone. There was just a sliver left of the bronze bushing. Here's what a bronze bushing looks like. And they're inside the spring eyes, they're inside the suspension, so you can't see them. You don't know if they're bad or not. And even though you grease them, they do wear out and go bad. Now, a lot of guys, they'll put in what's called never fail or forever bushings or whatever, but I'm still using the bronze. Anyway, a lot of these RVs come with plastic nylon bushings. They wear out in less than a year. But anyway, you can see here, these are the old Moride HD shackles that I took off, and I ordered a new kit. You can see the new kit here, where you get the Moride HD shackles with bronze bushings. You get individual wet bolts. All these are wet bolts, by the way. You get new wet bolts and new bronze bushings. So I just got a whole kit to do it again. I'm going to save these old HD shackles just in case. And I pre-greased all of these before I installed them in the right side. Make sure all the grease holes are open, that kind of thing. You can see one of the grease holes right there in that wet bolt. Grease goes down the Zerk fitting and out that hole. And so when you get new bolts, you should pre-grease them to make sure all the holes are open and that kind of stuff. And I'm going with a Moride equalizer. This is a CRE 3000 now. You can go with the SRE 4000. Gives you a little more rise. I mean, you can go with Leapert's Road Armor. Dexter has one. There's all kinds of them out there, but I like Moride, so I'm sticking with them. And I'm replacing the Liebert Equiflex. Once I got the old one out on the right side, I noticed that the rubber was a little worn in it. And you can see here with the Moride product, the rubber bushing in there, those wear out right here. They wear it after a while, and the ones in the Equiflex were pretty worn. And you really can't tell until you get it out. But our rig is a 2019, and that's the first time I'm replacing the equalizers. So, like I said, I like Moride, so I'm sticking with them. You can use whatever you want to use. The biggest thing that you have to do is make sure that when you do this, you properly support the RV when you're doing this. Now, I did one side at a time, and we have a 6-way electric leveling system. And I use the electric leveling system to raise the right side tires off the ground. Just just barely off the ground. Now, I know you're not supposed to do this. You're not supposed to use your leveling system to do it. But it works. Let's just put it that way. So, anyway, once I got the tires just barely off the ground, then what I built was what you see here. I bought a 2x12, cut 12-inch pieces, stacked and screwed together, and then that jack stand is a 6-ton jack stand. And then once I got the RV up, using the electric leveling system, then I placed these jack stands under the frame in the rear, and then just forward of the tires for safety. And so you can see that there's electric leveling mid jack. That 2x4 laying down there, I cut to go between the axles, and then I used a ratchet strap around the axles to keep them from moving when I took all the suspension apart. You gotta line up the spring eyes with the spring or the frame hangers to get the bolts back in. So anyway, this knurled end of this bolt goes into the frame hanger, and it keeps the bolt from twisting in the frame hanger. And so once you get the bolt set in, then you got to make sure that this shoulder right here, showing it with my finger, sticks all the way through the frame hanger, and the nut actually torques up against this shoulder. Now the torque rating by Moride is 40 foot-pounds. So this nut does not torque up against the frame hanger. It torques up against the shoulder right here. So you got to make sure that shoulder is sticking through the frame hanger all the way. Anyway, once I got the rig up and supported, then I've got two of these 3-ton jacks and stand. This is a lock, so it locks it in place. And that way you can raise and lower each axle. I placed them right underneath the U-bolts. It's not going to damage the axle, but you place it right underneath the U-bolts. That way you can raise and lower the axles to get all the wet bolts back in. So the right side I've got done. Like I said, I found one bad bushing. After 3 years and 17,000 miles, I had one bad bushing, and it was gone. The other bushings in the front leaf spring, and the bushings in the equalizer, and the spring eyes at the equalizer, all those bushings were still good. I just had one in the very rear of the rear axle spring that was bad. I did get a spare axle U-bolts I carry with me. I didn't change the springs. I think the springs are fine, but I did get this kit that is axle U-bolts in case I break one. While I'm down underneath there, take a wire brush and wire brush everything and paint them to cut down on corrosion and rust and that kind of stuff. But I do carry these U-bolts. They're a grade 5, I believe. They're zinc coated to reduce rust. They're 1/2 inch on my rig. You'll have to check out your rig for exactly what kind of axle U-bolts you got. Anyway, you can see what I've got here. This I will all install on the left side when I redo it. And like I say, I grease the suspension once a quarter, and we should be good to go for another 3 years. But I just wanted to shoot this thing for you to tell you to get underneath your rig and inspect it. If you're not comfortable with doing it, then any trailer place or RV dealership can do it for you. But And while I was doing the suspension, I also pulled the hubs. This is on a trailer with regular leaf spring suspension. Once I got all that done, I pulled the hubs, repacked and re-greased the wheel bearings, inspected them. They were fine. I did find one brake assembly. When I took the hub off, the brake pad just fell out on the ground. So obviously my right rear brake was bad. And I carry complete spare brake assemblies. 5 bolts, you take the old one off, you put the new one on, you splice the brake wires back in, and you're done. No more fooling around with springs and stretching them and changing the shoes. I ain't doing that. So I carry one right and one left brake assembly. And like I said, I had to replace the right rear brake assembly on this. But from the time I started rebuilding the suspension, repacking the bearings, inspecting the drums, and changing that brake assembly, it took me about 5 hours to get it all done. Normally, just doing the suspension, it would probably take me about 2.5, 3 hours. But while I had it apart, I decided to do all of it. So I'm going to wait for a good day to do the left side. And then, like I said, we'll be good to go for another 3 years. I'll grease it every quarter, the suspension. 3 years, another, who knows, 17,000 miles. I don't have to do it all again. Unless I don't want to do it, then I'll have to pay somebody to do it. But you got to figure, with labor rates $225 an hour, it could get real costly in a hurry. So that's why I decided to do it myself. Now, these 2 3-ton jacks, here's one of them, the other one's in the box back there. But the Morai CREs and the Morai bolt kit with these HD shackles, all in all, I've got about $400 in parts, not counting the brake assembly, because I had already bought that. I carry spares. But in all this, I probably got, well, including the brake assembly, probably a little over $600 in parts. And I did it all myself, so I saved, 3 hours times their labor rates, 3-4 hours. So, that's another $600-700. So you can get this thing wrapped up in some big dollars pretty quick. But I think this suspension will last another 3 years, and we'll go from there. But I thought I'd update you on the part 2 of our suspension inspection and rebuild, since I decided to do it. The last thing I want is to break down with some suspension problem in the middle of nowhere. So that's why I decided to do it. And like I said, I did find one bronze bushing. You can see how thick it is, and this is a spare bushing. But there was nothing left of the bushing in that one rear axle, the rear leaf spring where it hooks to the frame hanger. There was just a barely little bit of this bronze bushing left. The others were fine. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 or 8 of these bronze bushings, can't remember now, in each side. So only one was bad. I don't know what the left side is going to look like until I take it apart. But like I said, and you can see with the Morai, they already have bronze bushings installed in it. And to get the new bronze bushings in, like in the spring eyes, I just used a big C-clamp, and it just presses, you tighten up the C-clamp and it presses the new bronze bushing right in the spring eye. So that's no big deal either. So I thought I'd shoot this for you to show you what I'm doing, parts I'm using anyway. Make your own best judgment on what kind of parts you want to use. But these heavy duty shackles, I would do those. I mean, these are about 3 times the thickness of the standard ones that come on a lot of these leaf spring rigs. But thought I'd show you this and give you an update. And, you know, use your best judgment on what you want to do. I hope this helps. Gives you a little more information, what some of the parts look like and what I did. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. I didn't take any videos when I was taking it all apart and putting it all back together, but I've got some pictures that I took, still pictures. I took some still pictures of when I took it all apart. I didn't take any videos, but I'll put those pictures in the video so you can see what it looks like taken apart and kind of how you have to put it back together. Now, one of the things I do, it's up to you. You can do it however you want. But on these wet bolts, you can see where I've got a mark on the head of that bolt. Get one with not grease on it. But what I did was go through and mark the head of each of the wet bolts where the grease hole is on the bolt. And the reason I do that is I make sure that that mark is clocked at the 3 o'clock or 9 o'clock position when I set these bolts into the hanger. It makes it easier to get grease through the wet bolt when you do that. If the frame, if the leaf spring is setting right on top, if you put it in like this, grease hole facing up, it's harder to get grease in the wet bolt with the weight of the spring setting on it. So I put them in at either 3 or 9 o'clock position. Now you do whatever you want, but that's how I do it anyway. Thought I'd mention that because I forgot it in the other video. But anyway, thought I'd bring you up to date. I'll put some still pictures in there so you can look like what it's taken apart, and hopefully this is giving you a little bit of information. If you want to try to do this yourself, it's not that big of a job. It's just kind of time consuming, and you got to have the right tools to do it. Enough jack stands and enough support of your RV once you get it up in the air. But I won't tell you how I did it with electric leveling system, because like I said, the manufacturers don't want you doing that. But I'll just leave it at that. But I use my electric leveling system to get the side of the RV up, get the tires off, and do the rebuild. That's enough of that. Hope this has helped you, give you the information that maybe you can use. I hope it's helped. Thanks for watching, guys.